Hey, Tom. Regarding your query about whether we should use fear to motivate people to act on climate change, I think we have to, because think about it. Look at all our political ads. They're all negative ads pretty much, and they motivate us on fear to vote against somebody.
Yeah.
You know, calling Bernie a communist, and he's gonna turn this country into a communist Russia, something like that.
Venezuela.
But and on the Bloomberg ad, which you've probably seen, doesn't even use Trump's name, but at the end it turns his body into black and white from color, which indicates kind of his inhumanity. So again, there's a little bit of fear stuck in there at the end.
Yeah. I think that, you know, there are shades of this. Yeah, I mean, what's his first name? Romanoff, Andrew Romanoff, I think it is. What his ad is calling for, or is suggesting, is this, you know, terrible yeah, it's Andrew Romanoff, is this terrible dystopia, you know, where the little girl and her family are dealing with the consequences of climate change, presumably, you know, 100 or more years in the future. And, you know, and what a disaster it is. And that's like really selling fear. On the other hand, in the middle of his ad, they play a whole montage of, you know, people being, you know, displaced as a result of heavy, you know, far more violent than usual hurricanes and tornadoes, the wildfires in California. I mean, tell the people of Paradise, California, that it's not time to be afraid of climate change. You know, a bunch of them died. All of them lost their homes. Tell the people of the Midwest that, you know, whose crops were wiped out and whose homes were destroyed by flooding, that, you know, it's not time to talk about, oh, my God. At the same time, though, you know, we need to keep, I think, a real steady focus. Eugene, thank you. Thank you for your comments. I think we need to keep a real steady focus on you know, the upside. If we decarbonize rapidly, if we move to electric cars are so cool. They really work well. Anyway, Susie in Vaughan, Washington. Hey, Susie, what's on your mind?
Hi, I just wanted to say, listen to that tears streaming. That was gorgeous. But I do think we need to shake people up. I'm tired of pussyfooting around things, you know, and that's what we do. And this is a real thing. We can't have anything if we don't get this under control. There isn't going to be anything. We're not going to be able to take care of economics. We're not going to be able to get education. If we don't have an earth to live on, we're all dead.
Yeah.
How do they not see this?
Yeah, well, you know, what they're seeing is their profits over the next year. I mean, that's literally what's happening with the fossil fuel industry. Right.
Yeah, inconvenient truth. Wasn't that 100 years ago and nailed it on the head?
Yeah,
it's so true. But anyhow, I say scare the living bleep out of them, honestly. I'm doing it.
Okay. All right, Susie, thank you. Thank you for the call. Paul in Woodinville, Washington. Hey, Paul, what's on your mind? What do you think?
Well, I think that I'm on the side of no fear, and I'm going to qualify this. Fear is not an effective motivator for a couple of reasons, and you know this as you've been a teacher and a counselor, Tom, is fear. The difference that you said about, for your example, was, hey, there's a bus, get out of the way. The problem with knowledge as using it as fear is it does not activate the brain in the same way that, in other words, the amygdala, which causes the anxiety with fear, it's not activated with knowledge. So it's easily dissuadable, and so the other side will quell fears with saying, essentially, and the first queller of fear comes in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, when the serpent said, "Surely a bite of the apple will not have you come to harm."
Right.
So
don't worry, be happy. Paul, let me just insert a metaphor for the difference, you know, because there's basically two motivation strategies that we all use internally, that we use in advertising, that we use in marketing, and they are either moving toward pleasure or moving away from pain. And moving away from pain, which is this fear-based strategy, could be likened, if we're going to associate them with the elemental forces of nature, could be likened to electromagnetism. It's like, you know, being hit by lightning. It will provoke a rapid and sudden change in behavior, but it won't be a long-lasting change. And as you point out, it's subject to being ameliorated by the opposite. But you know, if you touch a stove that's hot, you will pull your hand away. There's no doubt about that. But and hopefully you'll learn a lesson from it. On the other hand, the hope, the moving toward pleasure part, is more like gravity. It's inexorable. You can't stop it. It works over a long period of time. It works slowly and gradually, but it is the most irresistible. And that's why a well-formed persuasion strategy, or even internal motivation strategy, contains elements of both, because they're two parts of who we are and how we interact with the world, but are principally informed by moving toward pleasure rather than moving away from pain. But moving away from pain can certainly get people's attention. Back to you, Paul.
Okay, I agree that both are involved, but let me talk about the person's perception of the other side. So if the other side is quelling your fears by saying, "Oh, surely this won't be bad for you," then you will begin to like the other side. You say, because you're making me feel better, right?
Right.
I feel so much better because. But if you move towards pleasure, or let's say incentivize the taking action to how much better your life will be, it will be cheaper. I used to Jeff in Colorado, Jeff Cook, used to say, he had a great quote. He was on this show. He said, "The one thing about renewables is your costs will never go up, but your fossil fuel bills will never go down." So if I incentivize you, and the other side, in other words, I give you hope, and the other side tries to talk you out of it, then they are the bad guys, looking like they're trying to kill your hopes, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
If you have cancer and somebody tells you, "Oh, don't be afraid, don't worry," that'll only last so long. But if you have a strategy with your cancer to have hope, and somebody tries to talk you out of having hope, you will really not like that person.
Oh, I had a friend who died of colon cancer because he had been sold a macrobiotic diet as a way to cure cancer. He literally went on a macrobiotic diet, and he died about 6 months later.
Okay, but I'm saying is that what his perception was of his hopes is that's the point. But the only thing I wanted to get back to in terms of the qualifier here is going back to yesterday's conversation. Now, this person is trying to win a Republican district, and you were talking about Republicans yesterday. Are they sadists? And I tried to get in, but the part of this conversation is Republicans and their negativity. They're actually fetishists. They have to get into negativity to achieve a certain gratification. And in sexual terms, a fetish means a person cannot reach gratification unless they go through a certain ritual. And it's an exact ritual. They can't have different fetishes don't work for them. So fear, though, is part of this, is part of the fetish psychology. It does work because the way fetishes get started is with sort of a repressed internalization. And so fear actually might work on these people for the purpose of an election.
Yeah, over the short term, yes, absolutely, and it can also get your attention. But as I said earlier, I think that we need to have a well-formed strategy. That is to say, if we don't do something now, our children, and not even our children, 10, 20 years down the road, 5 years down, right now, actually, we are going to see more cities burn. We're going to see more hurricanes taking out cities. We're going to see more rural areas flooded. We're going to see more death and destruction. There's over 100 million climate refugees a year happening right now, and we're going to see those numbers go up. But on the other hand, if we can decarbonize, we can enjoy a good life. Where the sun simply powers everything. We got this nuclear reactor 93 million miles away.
Right, and when you talk about what's happened to people, fear will work on people in California who survived the wildfires because they already have a traumatic experience that activates their amygdala. They already have an internalized anxiety. But people who have not experienced that won't get that. They don't.
No, I get it. Paul, your phone is falling apart right now. You're breaking up badly. Paul, thanks for the call. Warren in Missouri City, Texas. Hey, Warren, what's on your mind?
Hello, Tom.
Hey.
Well, I want to say hello from Libertarian Hell down here in Texas.
Okay.
This argument, I've had this argument with both Republican family members and Democratic family members. And with my Republican family members, he literally said, if the Gulf moves another 30 miles in, it's just closer to my house and the beach is better. And I looked at him and I said, that's fine until you get a king tide twice a month and it comes in your back door.
Well, what about the 30 million people who were just displaced on the seacoast who are now living in your backyard?
Yeah, but you know, you got to remember, with Republicans, they don't get
Logic.
Logic. There you go. Thank you.
Science, math.
All of this stuff. But my Democratic nephew made the comment, well, you know, with the climate change, we're just prepared to move out into the woods and take our 2 young children and teach them to live off the land. And my comment to him was, that's great, or you got to get her genetically engineered to sustain a high methane atmosphere.
Right.
And of course, and even though this guy works at a college, and as a college graduate, he goes, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Look it up."
Yeah, it is.
These people need to get engaged.
Yeah,
it's going to take fear to do that.
I agree. I really think that it's going to take both, and that we've been very, very careful not to use fear up to this point. Warren, thank you for the call. Leo DiCaprio and I did a short video. If you go over to YouTube and put in DiCaprio, Hartman, last hours, those 4 words, you will be able to see it. It's only 10 minutes long, and it's very scary.